Then the parsha ends off with the mitzvah of tzitzis. There are two parts of tzitzis. You're supposed to have Techeiles and Lovan. People quote me as saying that if you put on an arba kanfas, a talis, and you have Techeiles available, you don't put it on, it's a violation of Baltigra, and it's better not to put on the talis at all than to put it on and not have Techeiles. I didn't say that. I said that Beis HaLevi said that. Beis HaLevi is a little more authoritative than me. Beis HaLevi has a tshuva about it. First, he discusses when does one violate Baltigra. If a person only has 3 parshias in the tefillin, so Rashi and Chumash writes that that's Baltigra. So Beis HaLevi quotes the Rishonim are not happy with that Rashi. Why is that Baltigra? He's just mevatel a mitzvah of tefillin and shine. He doesn't have everything that you need. So the Beis HaLevi develops this idea. The only time you can violate Baltigra is if you do the mitzvah that has a lachatchila, should have been done b'shlem musa like this. Let's say a korban chatos. The Gemara has very few examples. So the Mishnah in Zvachim has an example. You have a chatos, he's supposed to do zrikas on 4 corners of the mizbeach. And he has enough time to do 4 zrikas, and he doesn't bother. He does 1 zrika. So we paskin b'di'evet. Machlekes is b'sham and b'sil. How many zrikas on the akad b'di'evet? So we paskin like b'silo. That only 1 zrika is makad b'di'evet. He does it l'hatchila. He has enough time to do 4 zrikas on the chatas, and he does 1. So the Mishnah said that's a violation of Baltigra. So the Beis HaLevi extrapolates from that Mishnah. It's a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah about that Mishnah. So he says it's only when you did a mitzvah that b'di'evet you yotzei the mitzvah, but you did it b'giron. You are mekayim the mitzvah b'giron, and you had the ability to do it b'shlei musa. So then you violate Baltigra. So that's what he says. If you put on a beged of arba kanfas and Techeiles is available, and you don't bother yourself, you have a political reason why you don't want to put in Techeiles, some political time. So then he claims that's a violation of Baltigra. When the Radziner Rebbe came up, the Radziner Rebbe was a great Goen. So when the Radziner Rebbe went, he felt that we have to show the Rebbeinu Shalom that we're interested in building a Beis HaMikdash. If we'll show that we're interested, then he'll help us. If we don't even show that we're interested, so why should he go out of his way to help us? So he said, you got to find out what is the Chaylosen. So he went specially, he heard that there was some museum or whatever you call it, some place in Italy where they have all of the sea animals, and from the Mediterranean they have a presentation so that the Chaylosen is supposed to be in the Mediterranean. So he went especially to Italy to find out which fish is the Chaylosen, and he when he came back to Radzin, so they made a factory, and until the war they were manufacturing Techeiles. There were tens of thousands of Jews. By the time the Nazis came to kill everybody, there were many. Most were Hasidim because they followed the Radziner Rebbe, but there were Mistagdim also who were wearing Techeiles before the Second World War. Then after the war, the one who later on became Chief Rabbi Herzog in Eretz Yisrael, when he was in Ireland, he was a rabbi first in Ireland. So he went to university, and his doctoral dissertation was on Chaylosen, on the Techeiles, and he researched it a lot. So it came out. He came to the conclusion he was the only one who knew how the Nazis killed so many people, and they destroyed the whole factory in Radzin where they made the Techeiles. So the only one alive who knew how the Radziner Rebbe made the Techeiles was Rabbi Herzog, because he had corresponded. He spoke to the people before they were killed by the Nazis, before the war. So after he published what he published about the Chaylosen, he claimed that the Radziner Rebbe said he put an advertisement in a newspaper in Italy. He's prepared to pay money to a chemist. He needs a chemical to help him out. So a Goyish chemist came, and he explained that we have this Techeiles from the Chaylosen. He thought that fish was the Chaylosen. and every time we dye wool with this Techeiles, all of the dye washes out. After they dye it and they wait till it dries off, it doesn't hold. So apparently the Tanoi must have put in some kind of a chemical that causes the dye to remain. So can you give me, I need this color blue from this animal, from this fish, but I need something that'll help that it shouldn't wash out. So he said, no problem. So he gave him a chemical. So that's the way they did it for years. They made the Techeiles like that. So Rabbi Herzog said that the guy fooled him, and he gave him a chemical that gave the color. All of the color from the fish was washed out, and the color that remained in the garment was an artificial color. It was from chemicals. It wasn't from the fish. Nothing was left from the fish. So the Radzina Hasidim, who survived the war in Eretz Yisrael, so they made another factory like they had in Radzin, and they didn't accept what Rabbi Herzog said, that the guy fooled the Rebbe, and they continue making the Techeiles the same way that they did before Rabbi Herzog came on the scene. But now they assume Rabbi Herzog is right. The Radzina Hasidim don't. They still make the way the Rebbe did, even though Rabbi Herzog said the whole thing was he fooled them, that all of the color from the fish goes out, and it's an artificial chemical that gives the color. So that's a shayla. What is? So that's the Beis Halevi says that if you have Techeiles available and you don't use it, that's a violation of Baltigra, because he yotze the mitzvah shelo b'shlei musa. You have a lot of times mitzvahs like that. In the mitzvah of chalitza. So the din is you need chalitza. Take off the Yavam has to take off the shoe from the right foot of the Yavam. You have to have Rikika, she has to spit on the floor in front of him, and you have to have Kriyas HaPsukim back and forth, they say Psukim. So we paskin the different opinions in Tanoim. We paskin that the Kriyas HaPsukim is not Me'akev, and the Rikika is not Me'akev. The only thing that's Me'akev is the Chalitzas HaSandal. But if that's all you're going to do, you're not going to do the rest, then you're in a violation of Baltigra. It's a mitzvah. It's a question, why don't we say a bracha when we do the mitzvah of Chavitza? We don't say a bracha, so the Rishonim talk about it. It's a mitzvah, and you're doing the mitzvah, Shalom B'Shlei Musa. You yotze b'di'evet, Shalom B'Shlei Musa. But whenever you have the ability to do it B'Shlei Musa, and you don't bother to, that's Baltigra. So that's what the Beis Halevi says. If you have Techeiles available, you don't bother to use it. So when the Radziner Rebbe first came out with the Techeiles, so different Rabbanim sent them their reactions to it. So Rabbi Yitzchak Hanan was a prominent rabbi Yeshiva University. Rabbi Yitzchak Hanan's reaction was, and the Radziner Rebbe put out 3 different svarim, Shlosha Sifrei Techeiles. Now they put all 3 together. Each sefer is not so big. So one of the 3 svarim is the reaction of the other Rabbanim to his Chiddush. So Yitzchak Hanan sent his reaction. He says, I'll agree with you that it's Techeiles and we should really put it in. But he writes, I'm in the middle of a battle with the Maskilim. He's fighting with the Maskilim, trying to do away with the Jewish religion. And if I'm going to start wearing Techeiles, everyone will laugh me out of existence. So I can't wear Techeiles. If I wear Techeiles, I'll lose my war against the Maskilim, against the Apikusim, so I'm sorry. But I agree with you that it's Techeiles. So if there's a mitzvah, you're supposed to put in Techeiles. And if you don't do it B'Shlei Musa, you're in violation of Baltigra. So you have a political consideration. You're fighting a battle with the Maskilim. Don't fight the battle. Let the Maskilim go to Gehenna. The Baruch Shalom will worry about the Maskilim. That's a reason to violate Baltigra. That's very questionable. Maybe he's the Mardasra here, but it's very, according to the Beis Halevi, that itself is an issue. Anyway, that's the Parsha of Tzitzis. Rabbi Akiva Eger on Shulchan Aruch has quotes from the Hafloah. The Hafloah was the rabbi in Frankfurt when the Chassam Sofer was growing up. The Hafloah was the rabbi. Rav Nosson Adler was was a Talmid Chacham there. Rav Nosson Adler was a Kohen. And by the Yekes in Frankfurt, the minig is that when they duchen on Yontif, on the Yom Tov, when they duchen, so the Leviim wash the Kohen's hands and right next to the Chazan. So everybody hears the whole Shemona Esrei. They don't have to walk outside and they miss half the Shemona Esrei. They're standing next to the Chazan and everybody's watching the way they wash hands. So the Chassam Sofer writes, as a child, he remembers it was such a beautiful sight to see. The rabbi was a Levi, the Hafloah would wash the hands of Rav Nosson Adler, who was a Kohen, in front of everybody, and he would give everybody the brachas Koyanim. So the Rabbi Kiveger has a comment on Shulchan Aruch. He quotes from the Hafloah on Chumash. That the Rabbeinu Tam has a chiddush that women are not mechuyev in the mitzvah of tzitzis. It's a machlokes hatanoim. The Gemara says whether it's considered a mitzvah saseh shehazman grama or not. Depends whether is it takedin laila lavzman tzitzis. Do you really darshan like that? Recently I say pratla laila that it's hazman grama. Balayla you're not mechuyev to do the mitzvah. So that's a machlokes hatanoim. So we pass women are potter because the mitzvah doesn't apply ksus laila. You're not chayrisim also prat like ksus laila. So it's a mitzvah shmagrama. Women are potter. So Rabbeinu Tam came up with a chiddush. That's how he interprets the Gemara. A woman who's not mechuyev in the mitzvah of tzitzis, whoever zayin b'toras cannot create lishma. So Tosfos has another chiddush. The Gemara says that the strings that you use for the tzitzis have to be woven, lishma. Has to be made by a Jewish person, lishma. So Rabbeinu Tam comes up with a chiddush. Not everybody agrees that not only do the strings have to be woven lishma, you have to tie them on the garment lishma. I would have thought that that's for sure. You need lishma. It's a chiddush that even taking the wool and making it into the string, that also needs lishma. You go back all the way. Shearing the wool off from the sheep doesn't have to be done lishma. But I would have thought only tying it on the garment, so that's, they didn't ask me. So
over the last 3 years since the war started, they've had women volunteers preparing Tolios Ksanos for the Chaylim. So they're having women do that.
Right. So most of the Rishonim disagree with Rabbeinu Tam. But in the Shulchan Aruch, they quote the proper thing is you should be machma like the Rabbeinu Tam, that a woman shouldn't, or a cotton, let's say. When I was a little boy, my grandfather, there was a period of time that my family lived in Pennsylvania. They sent me to New York to go to yeshiva because the day school in Philadelphia where we lived only went to the 5th grade. So for the 6th grade, I stayed by my grandparents. So my grandfather taught me how to tie tzitzis. And he was a learned person, but he didn't know all these dinim. So he was the shamus in Young Israel in the Bronx. So he had me tie the tzitzis before my bar mitzvah, way before my bar mitzvah. I tied the tzitzis on the talesim in the shul. So if the rabbi would have known, the rabbi knew the rabbi was a Talmid Chacham. So the rabbi would have not allowed it, because if you need lishma, so cotton can't create lishma. So many disagree. They hold you don't need lishma. Tying it on the beged, you don't need lishma. The Rabbeinu Tam holds you need lishma when you tie it on the beged. And a woman, even a woman is bas mitzvah, she's a gedolah, she's Jewish, she's a bas mitzvah. She's called Eina B'Toras because it says mangrama. So a woman is not kosher for tying on the tzitzis on the beged. So Rabbi Kiveger on Shulchan Aruch says, look in the Hafloah on Chumash, and he has a mocker from Chumash against the Rabbeinu Tam. Why? Because it says, Daber b'nei Yisrael v'amartu aleihim. Why does it say to us, Daber b'nei Yisrael v'amartu aleihim? It's the same thing. And it's not the same thing. Dibur is usually Loshen Kosher, and the Amarta is Loshen Raka. Like it says on the occasion of Maimen Hasin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Kosama lebeis Yaakov v'saged le'bnei Yisrael. So Rashi quotes from the Mechilta, Kosama lebeis Yaakov are the women. Amira is Loshen Raka. So tell the women, v'saged le'bnei Yisrael, dvarim koshim kigid le'bnei Yisrael are the men. So speak to the women, Baloshen Raka, and speak to the men, Baloshen Kosher. Tell them we're going to have Maimen Hasin, and they should all prepare for it. So here it says both Lashon. It says, Daber b'nei Yisrael dibur is a lashon kosher, ve'amarta alem is a lashon raka. So the Haflor suggests pshat is Daber b'nei Yisrael, tell the men, ve'amarta alem, they should tell their wives that their wives should tie the tzitzis. Because the women make all the begadim. They don't have the Judaica stores where they sell the talis. The wife is going to have to make the talis, so the wife is going to have to tie the tzitzis. So it's a beferish pasuk that the husband should tell the wives, and the wives can tie the tzitzit, the loika abenetam. So Rabbi Kiveger on Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Tzitzis tells you to look in the Haflor Sefer on Chumash, and today said Ran Shelach. That's his rive in the pasuk.